The path of the alchemist has always been about transformation, taking something ordinary and turning it into something extraordinary, converting lead into gold or base desire into spiritual power. In the modern age, semen retention and FAP practices represent this same timeless principle applied to human life and energy. Desire itself is not an enemy, it is raw material, like unshaped clay waiting to be molded. The problem arises when desire rules the man, consuming his energy through compulsive release and scattering his focus into fleeting pleasures. The alchemist understands that every impulse holds power, and that power, when transmuted, can elevate him to higher states of being. Semen retention becomes the furnace where desire is purified and redirected. Logic supports this alchemical truth. The body invests immense resources into creating semen, packing it with proteins, hormones, and vital elements. When released aimlessly, these resources are lost. When conserved, they form a reservoir of vitality that can be transmuted into creativity, strength, mental clarity, and even spiritual awakening. This is the alchemist's path in modern form, not rejecting desire, but transforming it into a higher force that fuels growth and purpose. To walk this path requires discipline, patience, and the furnace. The alchemist does not destroy his material. He studies it, understands it, and learns how to change its form. In the same way, semen retention is not about hating sexuality or repressing the natural urge. It is about observing the urge, recognizing its power, and consciously deciding to channel it elsewhere. Logic makes this plain. Desire is simply energy expressed through biology and psychology. When that energy is released habitually, it creates a cycle of dependency, draining motivation, focus, and vitality. But when a man holds it, the energy accumulates, charging him like a battery. This charge, however, must have a direction, or it can lead to frustration and imbalance. The true alchemist knows the importance of transmutation, redirecting this energy into exercise, creativity, meditation, or focused work. This transmutation transforms restless cravings into determination, transforming anxiety into clarity, and turning weakness into strength. NoFap then becomes more than abstinence. It becomes a practice of self-mastery, where the man reclaims sovereignty over his body and mind. Like lead turned into gold, base impulses are refined into qualities that shine confidence, discipline, and presence. Consider the psychological implications of this transformation. The brain is wired with reward systems that respond to dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to pleasure and motivation. Constant release through pornography or casual indulgence overstimulates this system, dulling sensitivity, lowering motivation, and creating cycles of dependency. The modern man, bombarded with instant gratification, is often left drained and unable to pursue meaningful goals. The alchemist on retention, however, disrupts this cycle. By withholding release, he resets his dopamine pathways, restoring balance and allowing his brain to derive pleasure from more productive pursuits. This is not mystical, it is logical neurobiology. Over time, the man who retains finds joy in creating, working, training, and building relationships rather than in chasing fleeting stimulation. This change reshapes his entire reality. What once felt difficult, studying, training, building a career, now feels rewarding because his brain no longer demands constant cheap dopamine. This rewiring is alchemy in practice, taking the raw energy of desire and using it to create a new identity rooted in discipline and purpose. The man who was once a servant to cravings becomes the master of them, and in mastering them, he becomes the master of his life. To illustrate this alchemical process, consider the story of Ravi, a young man who struggled with motivation and direction. He spent countless hours chasing temporary pleasure, feeling drained, ashamed, and disconnected from his goals. After learning about semen retention, he committed himself to the practice, treating it not as punishment but as an experiment in self-transformation. The first weeks were difficult. His mind craved the old patterns, and temptation tested his will. But instead of yielding, he redirected his urges. When he felt the pull of desire, he transmuted it into exercise, writing, and learning. Slowly, he began to notice changes. His energy increased, his focus sharpened, and people around him began responding differently to his presence. Within months, Ravi not only regained control of his habits, but also launched a small business, channeling his renewed creativity and drive into something meaningful. Looking back, he realized that his journey mirrored the alchemist's work. His base habits were the lead, and semen retention was the fire that transformed them into the gold of confidence, productivity, and self-respect. His story is not unique, is proof that the logic of energy, conservation, and redirection yields real transformation when applied consistently. On a spiritual level, The alchemist's path through semen retention carries even deeper significance. Ancient traditions such as Taoism, Buddhism, and Hinduism taught that sexual energy is not to be squandered but preserved as OEAS or life force. This energy, when retained, rises upward through the body, awakening higher centers of consciousness and fueling spiritual insight. Logic connects this spirituality to biology. The nutrients and hormones conserved during retention contribute to stronger immunity, better hormone balance, and improved mental health, all of which provide a fertile ground for spiritual practice. A man on retention often finds meditation deeper, focus steadier, and prayer more profound. The alchemist knows that energy is neither created nor destroyed, but transformed, and in this case, the transformation is from raw desire into spiritual awakening. The inner fire that once burned chaotically now becomes a steady flame, lighting the path toward wisdom and self-realization. NoFap thus becomes more than abstinence from unhealthy habits. It becomes a spiritual discipline where desire is not rejected but elevated into a force that connects man with his higher self and with the divine. Ultimately, the alchemist's path of semen retention is about reclaiming authorship of one's life. Every man has within him the raw material of desire, powerful, primal, and potentially destructive if left unmastered. But when this desire is conserved, studied, and redirected, it becomes the foundation of greatness. Logic supports every step. Energy conserved fuels strength, discipline, creativity, and clarity, while waste leads to weakness, distraction, and regret. The alchemist chooses the path of transformation, turning base cravings into gold-like virtues that shape destiny. His body becomes stronger, his mind clearer, his presence more magnetic, and his spirit more awakened. He no longer fears desire because he has learned to master it, to transmute it, and to wield it as a tool of creation. Like Ravi, countless men who walk this path discover that semen retention is not about repression, but about empowerment. It is the fire of alchemy applied to life itself. The lead of indulgence becomes the gold of discipline. The chaos of urges becomes the clarity of purpose. And the ordinary man becomes extraordinary. This is the true power of the alchemist. S-path transmuting desire into NoFap retention power that reshapes reality, strengthens identity, and awakens the highest potential within. Before we conclude, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to drop your location in the comments. I love to know where you're re-watching from. And if you ever have any questions, join our Telegram channel where we interact directly and help each other grow. The link is in the description. This is a series of introspective and philosophical about semen retention. So don't forget you, next video too became winner. Coming soon, the inner reservoir, tapping into your life force.